Hello world. Friday, March 11th, 4:34 p.m. I wanted to make another video. I was going through my videos and Google actually went into some of my backed up information and tried to delete it, having to do with this one video where I was laying in my bed, having to do with positive equals and all the rationale between the body's biomechanics and throwing algebra in the trash. You know, the negative and negative does not make a positive, so I figured I'd make a brand new video about it. And I was also going to touch base on what's going on between every war in the country, different countries, this continent, the next continent, a couple of continents over. In Ukraine, see, every time there's an actual war, politicians actually rope together everybody's social security number, birth certificate number. If you're actually enlisted in the military, you need these forms of identification to actually get into the military. Now, it's said that you need a social security card in order for them to claim taxes on you, and all that money goes to the UN. Now, the United Nations actually gathers up all this money. That's why if you look at the United Nations flag, all the money goes up north. Through the UCC code, through those two forms of identification, I wrote inside of that video in the definitions that having to do with when people die, politicians get rich. That's why they put innocents against each other and put guns in their hands so they can actually watch them kill each other. And then they rally up all the information having to do with those individuals, and then they claim all their social security benefits. I've spoken about this before. That's exactly what's happened on the Russian side. That's also happening on the Ukrainian side. That happened on the U.S. side. The issue with it is having compromised people in the government. Now, if you notice, it's always a Catholic person or a Masonic person within the realm of personnel that actually takes all this information. Now, what do they do with it? Same thing, as soon as someone dies, they've pretty much filed information on it. Now, if you look at your W-2s every year, people usually get around $5,000 to $10,000 back, but they never really look at it close enough to realize the government's taking $12,000. And that's where all the missing trillions goes. Back to my positive equals positive concept. It has to do with atomic math and getting rid of a lot of the issues. I touched base on this in my last video having to do with my algebra teacher. You know, he was a good guy, but he couldn't understand the concept of why all these biomechanics actually string together. He's teaching me algebra thinking that negative equals a positive, and it just doesn't work that way. That's why the stock market crashed. That's why many people are actually fed misinformation, so they don't realize all the negatives that are going out the window when you're losing your tax money, when you're paying your utility bills, when you're keeping everything in the green, whether it's gas, electric, all these things. Now, when I spoke again having to do with other countries, economic hitmen, most people think politicians are stupid. They're actually very smart. They just play stupid, keep their mouths shut, and there's actually this, I don't want to call it a clause, but if you don't ask about it, they don't know about it, or they don't want to tell you about it. They play very stupid, and that's the conflict of interest I'm talking about. Now, they don't want this information getting out there because, well, when people actually learn to use their harmonics, their force harmonics, their body's harmonics, when people meditate and pray, and you build up energy and lined up all those lights and the kundalini, and you have a snake in the kundalini diagram, that's actually letting you know that that's a pathogen, that's a virus. If you look at biblical texts, it says the same exact thing. Now, during the Middle Ages, everybody, if you've seen my videos before, I usually mention a lot about the Quran and the King James Bible and all the books that were actually put together. See, the Bible was constructed by the church during the 1600s by six different corporations. And they put all these books together because they were all spiritual warfare against the powers that be. Now, Masonic institutions, they actually charge for all this information. If you cross-reference the Library of Alexandria, that's exactly why this institution was burned down and all the records were appropriated into the Vatican. After they were appropriated into the Vatican, Masons as well as Catholics have to charge people. They don't have to, but that's a money racket. If they keep spoon feeding you bullshit, you're going to eat it. If you don't know right from wrong, you're just going to be ignorant to the subject. And that being said, whenever these things start adding up, if you add up all the negatives, all the pros and cons, all the positives, you'll see that all these things are inverted for a reason. Most of these people actually just care about money. They don't give a shit if you are dying. They don't care about biblical texts. They don't care about any of that stuff. They only care about acquisition. They only care about power. But back to that video that was deleted. I was going on the rationale having to do with all the positive quirking in your body. See, a quirk is two protons that actually stick together and they create a proton string. And a lot of people aren't really sure about that Switzerland area having to do with CERN quantum accelerator. And I've been doing a lot of research on that too. Now, the reason that's so important is because it has to do with atomic math. Most people on the day-to-day basis, they don't learn about that stuff. They don't teach about that stuff. But when you go to school, it goes against everything you are taught in algebra. So that throws algebra out the window. Everyone can solve for X. That stuff doesn't even matter anymore. The reason for that is you can have 20 cigarettes in your box and you can smoke them all. That's a negative. You have one empty pack of cigarettes. Therefore, a negative and a negative is not a positive. You can have a bank account with $0 in it and go into the negative and take more money out of it. A negative and a negative is still not a positive. You can drink out cool and walk into the desert and dehydrate, piss all your water out. A negative and a negative is still not a positive. More into these biomechanics having to do with the human brain, human nervous system, autonomic nervous system. All these things actually came together because Jesus Christ learned all the facts and he wasn't spoon-fed misinformation. The Vatican's been doing this for over 500 years. So when people get into arguments about semantics, they realize how misled the Catholic flock has actually been pushed. I mean, Christians don't do pedophile bullshit. Catholics do. They've got a couple centuries long worth of that pedophile bullshit because they considerably like Vlad Tepes, 1492, around there. Their motto was drink blood and cannibalize people. That's where the Vatican actually picked up this information. So Ottomans versus Dracula, that battle took over. And then they cut his fucking head off. Good job. After that, Vatican took all those information, took all those books, and then they kept out all the information. That's why I actually urge people to actually study everything. Most institutions, it's a serve us institution. They only want your money so they can spoon feed you bullshit. Now, in all my other sciences having to do with biomechanics, people get very, very upset when I do an interview with them because I don't even have to ask them any questions. I just have to sit there and look at them. I can flip through their head like a Rolodex like I do with a lot of the CIA agents and FBI agents. I know if you're bullshitting. I know if you're lying. I know what's in your bank account. I know what the hell you've done wrong. Yeah, it's that serious. When it comes to telepathy and all the nice things that go on, people don't add up all the stuff that has to do with God creating angels and jinn and God creating man and woman. People don't actually put in all the things that were created in between as well as after. That's where you get all your cryptids, centaurs, giants, vampires. And then you have a Vatican institution, Catholic primarily, that banks off of tithing, and they're up to $30 billion. I guess that means you don't have to tithe anymore. They've got backup accounts and reserves. Vatican actually owns Britain. Vatican doesn't own America. If you look over at cross-reference Papal Bulls 1493, that's the Indigenous Genocide of man, woman, and child. I don't fall in with that. A lot of people that have a conflict of interest, blood drinking, pedophilia, masonry, Satanism, and Luciferianism, that's that conflict of interest that I'm talking about.